to say the crucible. Follow along with me when I say the crucible. You see, I did a little study. And what I found out was that a crucible is something that is a special type of metal that is able to withstand extreme temperatures. And it holds a precious metal inside of it. Are you with me? So he was thrown down into the hole, but not only was he thrown into the hole, they didn't realize, but they were casting him into the arms of Jesus. Y'all don't get what I'm saying? And so Jesus, even though he's in this hole, he's being held by Jesus Christ. Are you with me? Follow along with me. Follow along with me. So then they actually see their cousins coming by, the Ishmaelites, and they're like, oh, no, we don't want to kill the brother. Actually, let's just go ahead and sell him as a slave to the Ishmaelites, and then actually we'll get him off our hands. His blood won't be on our shoulders. And so they sell him to the Ishmaelites, and the Ishmaelites become the tongues in the hands of God for carrying Joseph down into the refiner's fire. Are you with me? And so he's taken by these Ishmaelites down into the refinery called Egypt. And are you with me?
Yes, sir.
He's taken into Egypt. And friends, Egypt becomes God's refinery for Joseph.
Yes, sir.
Can I actually pause here for a second and make a commercial break here for a second? You see, friends, you actually wondered why in the world did God put you in a job with a whole lot of crazy people? You wonder why it is that God calls you to actually go through that terrible tragedy of losing your mother or your father or your sister or your brother. You wonder why in the world, God, is it that you actually caused me to lose my job when I decided to serve? You wonder why it was that when you decided to serve God, all of a sudden you went to the hospital and the doctor said you've got a terrible disease. You wonder why it was that all these tragedies happened to you after you decided to become a Christian. I'm here to tell you, friends, that is God's refinery. And friends, guess what, friends? If you had no heat, if you had no trials, if you had no tribulations, then you would never, ever actually be purified of the dross that covers you. So God actually had to allow Joseph to be taken out of the comforts of home and taken into the refinery called Egypt. The Bible describes it back in Psalms 105. It says his feet. Let's go back to Psalms, because I want you to get the picture. And the picture is powerful, friends. Psalms 105. Look what it says here in Psalms 105. His feet were in fetters. He was in iron. Did you hear what the Bible says? His feet were in fetters, and he was in iron. Whose feet they hurt with fetters. He was laid in iron. When it says he was hurt, it says he was afflicted with fetters. I get the picture in my brain. Anybody ever seen the movie Roots? It boggles my mind when I actually see what these people went through on those slave ships. They would be taken, who knows how many hundreds of miles across the land of Africa, never to see their parents again. Lo and behold, then when they would get to the slave ship, they would actually have to wait there for a certain amount of time. And then they'd probably put the chains on their legs if they hadn't already, and they'd have the chains around their neck. And then they would put these human beings not onto the top of the ship where they had fresh air and sunlight, but they put them down into the bowels of the ship. There in the bowels of the ship, they wouldn't even be allowed to move for who knows how long, and they'd have to literally lie in their own feces for weeks as they're crossing what was known as the Middle Passage. And I asked myself the question, how could a loving God who cared for human beings, allow such a tragedy to happen, until I recognized that God wants to refine us. And as bad as it was for Joseph, God knew that the best way for him to become what God wanted him to be was actually to allow him to go through this refining process. So here he was, friends, and there he got down to Egypt. And actually, after he was in Egypt, he was then sold as a slave. Sold into the house of Potiphar. You all know the story well. And there it was in Potiphar's house. And you know what else I found out about actually, the crucible and about the refinery? Is what they do in the refinery is along with putting the precious metal into the crucible, they put into this crucible something that's known as flux. I'm not cursing. Flux, F-L-U-X. And flux is interesting because flux looks like nothing but dust. It looks like nothing but dust, but they put it in there with this precious metal. And as the metal is put into this refiner's fire and it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, what that flux does is it connects with all the dross on the precious metal. And so it connects with that dross, and it's lighter than the precious metal. So as the metal becomes liquidized, that flux and that dross actually, it comes up to the top. And it begins to float on top of the precious metal. So by the time the refining process has taken place, you can actually take that dross off the top of the gold, or off the top of whatever else type of precious metal is that you have inside the refining process. Are you with me? So they actually put this flux in there before they put it into the refinery. So let me make that a little more practical. God allowed Joseph, first of all, to be put into the crucible. Then after he's taken into the crucible, then he takes him down into Egypt and he puts some flux inside the crucible with Joseph. What do you mean? It looks like worthless, good-for-nothing material, but what it's going to do is it's going to take out the worst in Joseph and bring out the best in Joseph also. Are you with me? So what he did was he put a good-for-nothing woman named Potiphar into the crucible of Joseph. He put a good-for-nothing bunch of servants who probably worked with Joseph in the crucible with Joseph. He put a good-for-nothing Potiphar into the crucible with Joseph to actually work with Joseph. He put all these terrible people right there into the crucible with Joseph. Why? Because what he said is, if I can put this terrible stuff in there with Joseph, I'll bring out the best in Joseph. Can I make that a little more practical? Can I make that a little more practical? Some of y'all like sports. Some of you like sports, don't you? Were it not for a Larry Bird, there may not be a Magic Johnson. Are you all with me? Were it not for LeBron James, maybe there may not be a Stephen Curry. Y'all didn't get that. Y'all, maybe so. Were it not for George Foreman, maybe we wouldn't be talking about a Muhammad Ali. Were it not for Joe Frazier, maybe we would be talking about a Muhammad Ali. Or better yet, if it were not for a Pharaoh, maybe we wouldn't talk about Moses. If it weren't for a Goliath, maybe we wouldn't talk about David. If it weren't for a devil, maybe we wouldn't be talking about Jesus. The reason that God puts that stuff in there is to bring out the very best in the other person. And sometimes the reason God puts some hard-headed people around you is to bring out the best in you. You see, all we want is some good people around us who think like us, who talk like us, who act like us. But God says, let me put somebody around you who's going to get on your last nerves, because iron sharpens iron.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You see, we always want to be around people who are going to actually make us feel good. But God says, no. I got to bring you around a Pharaoh. I got to put a Potiphar's wife there who's going to accuse you of rape. I've got to put some prisoners in there. And friends, we always think it was just a bed of roses for Joseph in prison. I'm here to tell you that when Joseph got in prison, he was around some rapists probably, and some murderers, and some pedophiles, and some other terrible people who probably got on his last nerves, and he had to go back and get on his knees and pray. You see, if you didn't have some terrible people around you, maybe you may not pray. But God says, I got to put some people around you who are going to test you and try you and get on your last nerve so you'll learn to get on your knees.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But that's not it. So he puts them in the crucible. He puts them in the refiner's fire. The dross is now able to be taken off of Joseph. But this is what boggles my mind. He let Joseph stay in there for 13 years. You all can actually do all the calculations for yourself. It wasn't 2 or 5 years. It was 13 years. He allowed Joseph to stay in this predicament. And I asked myself the question, oh, okay, God, I understand you're trying to refine us, you're trying to mold us, you're trying to make us, you're trying to actually make us more like you. But then I asked myself the question, but why did you actually keep them in a refiner's fire for 13 years? Why after 5 years didn't you take them out? Why didn't you actually why didn't you move on the heart of his brothers to say, Dad, we sold our brother into Egypt. Let's go down and save him after 5 or 6 or maybe 7 years. I mean, 7 years is the number of completion. Why in the world is it that you actually took 13 years? I mean, 13 years in which he probably got beaten. 13 years in which he actually experienced some of the worst pain that you can imagine. 13 years in which he was in chains around his neck and around his feet. 13 years in which he actually saw some of the most horrendous things in a prison cell. 13 years, including 2 years after he'd actually told the young man his dream, and the guy actually was able to go out to Pharaoh. Why didn't the guy tell Pharaoh, there's somebody in prison, let's go ahead and deliver him? Why did you keep him in there for 13 years? And you look at the book of Genesis, and you know what? Genesis never tells us. Genesis never tells us why God allowed Joseph to be in the refiner's fire of heartache and heartbreak and prison and slavery for a full 13 years. But Psalms 105 tells us the answer. Look at it again, verse 19. Until the time that his word came, the word of the Lord tried him. Now there's 2 shouting points in here. First of all, the word where it says in verse 19, until the time that his word came. That word right there could have been translated promises or something promised. So what it could have translated, it could have said was, until the time that his promise came, the word of the Lord tried him. Are you with me? What that means is that God had promised Joseph that one of these days your brothers are going to bow down and worship you. Isn't that right? Isn't that right, friends? I'm promising that I'm going to cause you to rise high. And since I made that promise to you, I'm going to keep my promise. As the song says, God will do just what he said he'll do. He's going to fulfill his what? His promise to you. Don't give up on God, because he won't give up on you. Why? Because he's what? He's able. No. God will, he's what? He's able. Which means, friends, that if God made a promise, even though it might take a long time, God will keep his promise. If he said he's causing you to ride high, if he said he's going to bless you, he will bless you. You just got to learn to wait on the Lord. Amen? They that wait on the Lord shall what? Renew their strength. But that's not it. That's part of it. What really blew my mind was this other part. Until the time that his word came, the word of the Lord tried him. Now, I looked up that word try. And there was a reason I was talking about the refiner's fire. You see, that word try could have also been translated purified. That's not good enough, though. That word tried could have also been translated tested. That's still pretty good, but that's not good enough. But that word try could have, now get this one. That word try could have also been translated melted. That's what I was looking for. It could have been translated melted. What do you mean, Pastor? Let's put that in there. Until the time that his word came, the word of the Lord melted him. Y'all didn't get that. Y'all didn't even get that. Get this. You see, it took 13 years for Joseph to be totally melted. Are y'all with me? It took 13 years for everything solid to become nothing but liquid. Are y'all with me? You see, because if it's solid, it can't be poured out. Y'all didn't... Am I talking to myself, friends? So he said, you know what? There's still a little bit of solid stuff in him. I got to keep on burning.
Yeah.
You see, friends, part of the reason that you may not have received the blessings that God wants to give you is because He sees that you're not totally melted and there's still something solid in you. And God says, I'm going to have to keep on burning and keep on refining and keep on actually putting the torch to Him, because He's got to be so totally burned until all He is liquid. You see, because once you're liquid, then they can actually take you like a liquid and they can pour you out into whatever mold they want to put you into. You see, because what God said is, I got a big mold for Joseph. But the only way I can pour him in is if he's totally become liquid.
Yes, sir.
So He has to keep on melting us.
Yeah.
Sometimes we wonder, God, why are you allowing this tragedy to happen and this thing to happen? And I'm trying to serve you. God says, I'm melting you.
Yeah.
I'm burning you up because there's still a little bit of you that's still left. And I have to take that stuff out. Because if I don't take that stuff out, then when you get into that position, self will get in the way. Not everybody ought to be in the positions that they're because they're not ready. God said it's still, He said 12 years, there's still a little more that needs to be melted. He said in Potiphar's house, it's not good enough. I got to put him into a prison cell. Because in this prison cell with rapists and with murderers and with pedophiles and with serial killers, maybe in that prison cell I can melt him. And better yet, he says, even after the butler and the baker have talked to him, he's still not totally melted. I gotta burn, I gotta melt that earthliness. I gotta melt that pride. I gotta melt that selfishness. I gotta melt that haughty spirit. I got to melt that love of the world. I've got to melt that sense of that seeking to save yourself by your own strength. I got to melt that out of him, because if I don't melt that out of him, he's going to depend upon his own abilities as opposed to depending on me.